Hare Krishna. So thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome everyone, welcome. Shri Radha Golokananda ki, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna. So request everyone can kindly come all the way in front. Our next program is going to be the class by His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. So let's warmly welcome Maharaj. He was on his Europe tour, sharing Krishna consciousness all over Europe, and he's just returned on Friday, I think. Yes, a couple of Friday. So let's warmly welcome His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki. Hare Krishna. So Maharaj will begin the talk just in a few minutes as we get settled in. I request everyone can kindly come front and get seated. So let's take 1 minute, and 1 minute let's really chant the holy name with a heartfelt, with a mood of prayer, and from our heart let's call out for the mercy of Shri Radha Golokananda. So please repeat after me. We're going to start with Panchatattva mantra, and for 1 minute we're going to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So please chant. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, everyone together, we'll chant this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is written right here. So we chant loud enough so we can hear, and try to hear the Mahamantra attentively. Please join me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. So once we'll raise our hands up in the air, calling out for the mercy of Shri Shri Panchatattva, let's loudly chant the holy name. Hare Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. As I announced earlier, now we'll have a talk, and at 6 p.m. we'll have dinner prasadam, and we'll have some more announcements after the talk.
Okay. Everybody. Always wonder why everyone claps when I get a garland. Anyway, one day I will understand why. I didn't make the garlands. It's a nice garland. We should clap for the garland. And the person who made the garland, they deserve all the applause. So who made the garland? Shama Kishore. Everybody clap for Shama Kishore. Okay, I'm sorry for the heat, but, I couldn't do anything about it. So by next year at this time, hopefully we'll have the new temple and we'll all be cool as cucumbers next year. That was the best clapping I've ever heard so far. Okay, so today's class, hopefully it'll be interesting, is about the topic of atonement. And we're going to all ask you to atone after class. For one reason I'll explain later. And the method, sorry, the method of atonement will be you're all going to pay for the new temple. Okay, how's that? For a fundraising idea. Doesn't work too well. All right, so we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihare Gopi Janabalaba Giri Bharat Hati Gopi Janabalaba Giri Bharat Hati Yasudanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasudanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Manachante Yamunatira Manachante Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Vihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Vihare Janabalaba Giri Bharat Hare Gopi Janabalaba Giri Bharat Hare Yasudanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasudanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Manachare Yamunatira Manachare Jai Radha Madhava Kunnaruhante. Jaya Bhumaruba Kunnaruhante. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvatakacharya also Teta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shitweda Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sai Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagadava Sabe Ki Jai Buddhamai Ki Jai Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Savaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Om. All glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees. All glorious to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namah Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samaniti Namani, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gaurvani Pacharni, Nivishesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarni. Somagana Timiranda Shah Gadanjana Shalakya Chakshur and Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So as I mentioned, we're going to speak about something called Prayaschitta today, which in English is atonement. That's a heavy word. And recently I've been thinking about it, not that I have to atone for anything, except for mistreating disciples. But basically, I've been thinking about it for different reasons. One is I just read the part of the Bhagavatam that deals with Chitraketu. Now, Chitraketu, just real quick story. Chitraketu wanted to have a son, couldn't have a son, but then he was blessed by Angira Rishi to have a son. But the problem is, he had many wives. I'm not going to mention how many. That's another subject matter for another class. But he had a lot of wives. You know, when you have a lot of wives, they all love each other, right? No? So many stories. By Kay, right? Anyway, there's no envy in this material world. Everyone loves each other. Am I right? No? You're disagreeing with me. So, anyway, so what happened is this one lady, Krichaduti, the favorite wife, actually had the kid because she was blessed by Angira Rishi. And of course, Angira Rishi said the kid will be happiness and distress, Harsha Shoka. And the other wives became so envious, what do? They kill the poor little kid, and of course Narada Muni comes, preaches, brings the kid, excuse me, brings the kid back to life. That's right, it's not water, it's the heat. So brings the kid back to life, and the kid preaches to them. But then it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam that the ladies had to undergo atonement. So I'm thinking, what atonement? Oh my God. That is a really heavy word. And, you know, in many, many religions, the only atonement you can have is to go to hell forever. Did you know that? Certain religions, even if you make a philosophical mistake of choosing the wrong religion, you go to hell forever. That's just a philosophical mistake. Even if you're a nice person, vegetarian, you love everybody, but you didn't happen to take a particular path. I mean, there's two religions I'm thinking of in this particular regard. You go to hell forever. No atonement, or you get to atone forever. Wow. That is frightening, isn't it? Think about it. Forever and ever and ever you go to H-E-double-L. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to mention one thing. This is funny. One thing you got to atone for today, some of you have to atone for it. This is a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You're all going to start offering obeisances when you hear this. Devata pratimam drishva yatim chaiva trinandinam namaskaryam nakuryadya prayaschitayate naraha. Oh my God, does anyone know that Sanskrit? It says, one who does not offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to his deity in the temple, you all did that, or to a Tridandi sannyasi, must undergo prayaschita atonement. Please accept my obeisances. The prescribed atonement is to fast for 1 day. That's pretty good atonement. Anyway, so don't worry, I'm not going to impose that on all of you right now. And so we're going to talk in general about how to atone for anything that you may have done in the past. And so, in the context of this discussion, we're going to make reference to the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, for those of you who have read the Bhagavatam, you have the different punishments that are given to people who do certain things. I'm not going to go over the details of the punishments. They're pretty frightening. I'll give you one story from the Bible, not just story, punishment. That anyone who disturbs a devotee who's preaching Krishna consciousness gets to put through a sugarcane press. The whole body. Again, and again, and again, and again. Woo! So help these devotees distribute Srila Prabhupada. But where's the dictionary in Peru? So, if you get in the way of his book distribution, it's a sugarcane press for you. And you're the sugarcane juice. Anyway, it's there in the Bhagavatam. We're not just making this up. Of course, the atonement is to go on Sankirtan with him, right? So, you read about all these things and, oh my God, it's frightening. It is extremely frightening. So, all right, 5th canto, let's get to the end of the 5th canto. So, then in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, you have Shukadeva Goswami's disciple, Parikshit Maharaj, ask him a question. He says, Guru Maharaj, how, because he's not sinful, he's never done anything sinful his whole life. I mean, he feels guilty that, he put this snake around the Brahmin's neck. Feels guilty about it, but he's atoning by fasting, etc. So he says, how could all these people who are supposed to be punished for all these different activities be saved? What's the method of saving all these people? Because he's compassionate. Many of us are not compassionate. When someone does something wrong, what do we want? We want to see them, what? Punished? Not just punished. Suffer. Isn't it? Gotcha. Right? But a pure Vaishnava doesn't think like that. A pure Vaishnava thinks we want these people to come to the right frame of consciousness, to reform. There's two philosophies of punishment. One is retribution. What does that mean? It's getting even, making him suffer. Ha ha. like people do in the United States, send people to capital punishment. Everyone's waiting outside of the prison house, waiting to see that the person has been poisoned or put in the electric chair or something like that. And everyone goes, Haribo! Not Haribo. No. Everyone goes, isn't that wonderful? They go, that we don't take joy in seeing other people suffer. And actually, neither does Krishna. So why does Krishna have all these different sufferings in this world? Actually, if you don't believe in hell, let's say you say, well, all these descriptions in Bhagavatam, I don't believe there's a hell. Well, even if you don't believe, and that means you're a rascal, but even if you don't believe, look at what's happening in the world today. There's certain places where people are suffering, human beings are suffering what? Just as bad as the hells that are described in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, isn't it? You got a large percentage of the world that doesn't have access to fresh water. Actually, there's certain people in Hillsborough don't have access to fresh water after the flood. But seriously, certain people they're just going for what I just read today. Certain young people went to get some water and they got killed. Just because they tried to get some water or some food and they were hungry, they're starving to death. So there are places in this world, even if you don't believe anywhere else there's a hell or anything like that, there are places. Go into a hospital, see how people are suffering, cancer patients like that. Anyway, it's like that. So there are situations like that. So anyways, getting back to the point is, why do people suffer these punishments, whether it's here, whether it's somewhere else? And that has to do with something called karma. But it also has to do with the Lord's mercy. These punishments, just to make it very simple, given by the Lord, Krishna, they're given for the purpose of rectification, not for the purpose of making someone suffer. So you may say, how can someone be rectified because they did something they don't remember that they did, right? Past life. Well, there's the subtle body. The subtle body is the body of impressions that underlie this grosser or physical body. It's actually mind, intelligence, false ego. The gross body is called Panchamahabhuta, earth, water, fire, air, ether. So, little technical there. So in any case, that subtle body learns. It's a subconscious thing. You can learn subconsciously or change your habits subconsciously without being aware of consciously why you did it or whatever. So anyway, so just to make it clear that God is not cruel. Everything has a purpose. Even the difficult situations that we or someone may find themselves into in this world or after death or wherever, always has a purpose. Try to understand that. So, getting back to the point, Parikshit Maharaj asked the question. Now, what is the question? How can these living entities be freed from all these punishments? And Shukadeva Goswami, his spiritual master, decides to test his disciple. Instead of saying something that is the answer, the proper answer, he says, by prayaschita, which basically means atonement or torturing yourself in some way or bodily austerities. I mean, a long time ago I was watching this movie about atonement. It wasn't a Krishna conscious movie. The name of the movie was Da Vinci Code. Anyone's watched that movie? And in that movie, there was this guy who was atoning by beating himself with chains. I'm so bad. Oh my God. Does anyone want to do that? Every time you're bad, you ever been a bad boy? No, he's never been a bad boy. Ananda's been bad, but this guy is just like, Unbelievable. Goody-goody two-shoes, as we say. He's a yes man. Yes, Dad. Yes, Dad. Yes, Dad. So, most of us feel guilty. We did something wrong, you know. Like the other day, I sped in my car. I felt real guilty until the police caught me. That was my atonement. So anyway, so we, obviously, that's not a good idea. But still, Shukadeva Goswami says that to Parikshit Maharaj just to test him. And Parikshit Maharaj, being pretty intelligent, passes the test. He says to his guru, actually, that doesn't do any good. Because if you get punished for something, yeah, you'll feel bad about it for a few minutes. And when you can get away with it, you become more expert at getting away with it in the future. In criminal law, that's called recidivism. That means revolving door at the prison house. Anyone's heard that word before? Recidivism. So the reason is that someone still has the desire. Because there's this interesting point about karma. Okay. Karma, okay, let's talk about karma. Karma means, in one sense, reaction to something. We're not going to get into the details of Bhagavad Gita, karma, vikarma. But anyway, so there's a whole chain of karmic effects. And that chain begins with something called a kuta. That means inclination to do something. Then after that, you get a bija, a seed. The desire to do a specific thing. And then you get the action, the karmic karma, the activity. And then you get the aparabdha karma, which means your karma, your result of your karma that hasn't come yet. Just now coming. Check your astrologer. Your neighboring astrologer will tell you about your aparabdha karma. Okay, next year, this is going to happen. Just like when I was 50 years old. That's last year. So when I was 50 years old, the astrologer said, when you're 55, you're dead, Prabhu. Okay, and I was counting off the karmic days. And I was disappointed because I'm still here. Because I was planning to go back to Godhead. And it didn't work out. I stayed in the material world in the present incarnation. So, so anyway, that's called aparabdha, and then parabdha means what you have right now. So the problem is it's a cycle that continues, and even if you can stop right now doing the things that really got you the reaction, you still have the kuta and the bija. You still have the inclination and the seed of desire. And so it's going to happen again and again and again and again. You're going to do the same thing. The devil made me do it. You ever heard that expression before? Because in Krishna consciousness we have another one. I'm in Maya. Maya made me do it. So, the Christians and the people in the Muslim religion, devil, they have their devil, we have our Maya. Because Maya's not a devil, she's a servant of Krishna. And she doesn't make us do anything unless we say, we'll do whatever you want, Maya. Just like there was a discussion once between a king and the sage. The sage was asked by the king, why is Maya so strong? And the sage, instead of answering verbally, ran up to a pillar and grabbed the pillar in the palace and said, let me go, let me go. So in other words, we're asking for it. So getting back to the story, Parikshit Maharaj, okay, said I talk about that story. Parikshit Maharaj says, I don't like the answer, Guru Maharaj, because one will still keep doing whatever he's doing. And Shukadeva Goswami continued. He said, all right, let's give you something else. Let's talk about getting knowledge. That was a step up. Knowledge about what's good and not what's bad, karmic reaction. But ultimately, he pointed out, answering Parikshit Maharaj's questions, it's not by austerities, it's not simply by knowledge. Actually, this is a quote from Jadabharata in the Bhagavatam. Ruganai tat tapasa niyati nacheja nirvat ganat granhadva nachandasa jaiva chandasa naiva jalagnatur suryar banar mahat pada rajobhishekam. That you can't achieve this Krishna consciousness or freedom from reaction by executing austerities, becoming a brahmachari, a good grahasta, a good businessman, putting yourself in the temple in the middle of the summer. Sorry, it's supposed to be funny. Or putting yourself outside in the middle of the winter, and ice cubes in the middle of the winter, only by devotional service, specifically devotional service of associating with devotees, which is really interesting. Of course, we're going to get to a further explanation there. So, in order to illustrate this point, and ultimately to connect with Krishna by chanting his holy names, so in order to illustrate this point, Shukadeva Goswami tells this beautiful story in the 6th canto. That's the Ajamil story. So let's tell the story of Ajamil in a nutshell. Ajamil was a nice Brahmin when he was young, and then he had some trouble. His trouble was he began to meditate upon a couple, a Shudra couple, and they were engaged in lusty affairs publicly. He became attracted to the Shudra lady, and ultimately he gave up his own good wife, and he gave up his own family, and mistreated his father and relatives, and became very, very sinful. Very, very sinful. That's called vikarma. Okay, so let's talk about what sin is, because that sounds a little Christian here. Sin. Anyway, when we talk about sin, we're meaning things that go against the law given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when you violate the law, there's a certain reaction. That's all. Just like we have a law of gravity. If I try to violate the law by jumping up, what happens? I go down. If I jump off the balcony here, it won't be a pretty sight. I may think that I'm independent of the physical laws, or I may think I'm independent of the karmic laws, or the moral laws, or the ethical laws, but then there's some result, reaction to it. So he was violating all these moral laws. And as a result, when he was really old, he was getting ready to die, and he had so much bad karma that everybody knows who was waiting for him but the Yamadutas. Yamadutas are agents of Yamaraj. Yamaraj is not a cruel person. He's a pure devotee of Krishna. He's just given that particular service of rectifying us. Well, rectifying people, not me. And in order to do that, then there has to be some uncomfortable situations, to say the least. So his agents were waiting for this particular person, Ajamil. So Ajamil passes away, but he had a son. He was very old, like 86 or 88. Had a son named Narayan, and he was very attached to the son, and he was crawling out for Narayan. And because he was calling out for Narayan, he was executing what we would call prayaschita, atonement. Not really atonement, because you can't equate the chanting of Krishna's names with atonement. But still, The chanting of Krishna's names, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahadvagni Nirvapanam, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays and chants, they have the potency to get rid of all these different aspects of the kuta and bija, which we mentioned previously. The inclination to do bad things, or vikarmic things, which means bad things, and even the seed of desire to do those things. Sometimes it's described by the process of chanting, the seed becomes fried. When you fry a seed, it can no longer fructify. So, what happens is this person is saved from the Yamadutas by the Vishnudutas. Okay, so he's saved by the Vishnudutas, and therefore the conclusion given, the conclusion given by Parikshit Maharaj, to Parikshit Maharaj, by Shukadeva Goswami is, Tasmat Sankirtanam Vishnor, Janga Mangalang Angasam Mahatamapi, Korivya, Vijakantaka Nishkratam. And I should read the translation of this, which is really nice. Shukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is able to uproot even the reactions of the greatest sin. Therefore, the chanting of the Sankirtan movement is the most auspicious activity in the entire universe. Please try to understand this, so that others will take it seriously. And then there's another beautiful verse I wanted to cite in this regard. Stena Surapo Nitradorg, Brahmaha Guru Talpada, Sri Rajapatri Gohanta, Yechi Pata Kino Pare, Savesham Ap Yagavatam, Idam Eva Sunishkritam, Nama Vyaharanam Vishnor, Yatastad Vishaya Mati. And this translation is, the chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for a thief of gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, or one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a Brahmin, or for one who indulges in sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders women, the king or his father, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection. Amazing verse, isn't it? So, of course, this does not excuse someone who uses that particular injunction to go on doing the same vikarmic activities. That's called sinning on the strength of chanting. But all of us can be assured that simply by chanting Krishna's holy names, avoiding further vikarmic activities, what we call sinful activities, one can be free of whatever one did in the past, the reactions. And I'm going to give some examples of this, some stories that are interesting to illustrate the point. One is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's the story of a great devotee who was a follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His name was Subhuti Roy. Anyone's heard the story before? Okay. Subhuti Roy was actually a very rich man. And what he did was, when he had a young servant, he hit his servant one time. Okay. Not such a big karmic activity, anyway. So the servant grows up, but then the servant gets a high position in the government. He gets to be something called the Nawab. Everybody know what a Nawab is? That means like the governor of a particular province. So here he is, has a good relationship with his former employee, very good relationship, but he has this one mark on his back that was from the punishment given by Subhuti Roy. So he doesn't worry about it. But his wife sees it one day, and his wife says, "What's that mark on your back?" And he says, "Subhuti Roy hit me before." And she says, "You got to kill him for that." You know, in those days you could kill someone for that. And he says, "No, he's my good friend. I don't want to kill him." And she says, "You got to do something." And he thinks and he thinks and he thinks. And she says, "Well, at least you got to turn him into a Muslim." In those days, it was very easy to convert someone in that way. You just sprinkle water from your water pot. Anybody have a water pot here? I could sprinkle you all and turn you into Hare Krishna devotees. We do that. Actually, after every RT, that's what we do. Isn't it? You didn't realize that. You shouldn't have come here if you didn't want to be a devotee, because now you're converted. No. You don't have to convert to be a devotee. You already are a devotee. You don't have to undergo some ritual conversion. Don't worry about it. You can still be a rascal. So, on the other hand, all right, so she said you got to convert him. So he decides, I'm going to convert him. So he takes some water from the RT, no, from the water pot, and goes, "Woo, kazoom, you are a Muslim." Oh my God. And he goes, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" You know, people were so ritualistic in those days. Oh, and everybody, his whole society was going to reject him because of that. That's interesting, isn't it? A society that rejects you just because you took a shower in the wrong way. So anyway, so basically he decides to go to Varanasi. Everybody knows what Varanasi is? He goes to Varanasi. And he's in Varanasi, and he goes to the Brahmins there and said, "How can I repent? How can I atone for this great sinful activity of being taking a bath in the wrong way?" So, you know, people, amazing rituals, you know, like that. You see, like, you break a Brahmin thread, you curse someone, you know. I one time I was talking to someone, I had my covering one eye and said, "You're cursing me." Anyway, so as you see, I don't take rituals very seriously. So the Brahmin said to him, "The only way to atone is you take boiling ghee and drink it." Of course, that doesn't work too well. And so he was going to various people. Oh my God, what should I do? Finally, he runs into who but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Haribol. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what does he say? Just chant Hare Krishna. Take sannyas. But and go to Vrindavan. So, of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood, you know, it really wasn't an offense. It really wasn't something he had to atone for. But at the same time, he was taking advantage to send this nice devotee to Vrindavan. And this nice devotee, what did he do in Vrindavan to further so-called atone? He served all the Vaishnavas there. It's described he did a little business. And with that money, he bought food for all the Vaishnavas and served all the visiting devotees. He served Sanatana Goswami, he served Rupa Goswami, and he became known as a great pure devotee after that time. So that's an interesting story about how chanting the holy name is all you got to do. Another interesting story, just 2 or 3 more interesting stories to illustrate the point, is the story of someone who I think everyone's familiar with, and that was Valmiki before he became Valmiki. He was Ratnagara, and if you don't know the details, I can tell the details, that he was a dacoit, and dacoits are not so friendly in India. Anyone's here run into a dacoit? I have. They're not so friendly. You can get killed very, very easily. So this dacoit was stopping everybody on the path as they were going and stealing their money and killing them. Right? And so that was his job, dacoit. So anyway, so what happens is the Sapta Rishis, the 7 Rishis, they come across him, and he tries to steal from them and attack them. And they say, whoa, just wait a second. Don't you understand this is very bad karmically? Even the dacoits, because he was a Brahmin originally. So even though he was a dacoit, he was also a Brahmin, and he understood about karma and vikarma and the reactions to karma. And so he says, I know it's bad, I know I have to suffer, but this is my job. You know, we all have jobs, right? Some people work for Microsoft. You know, that's not so bad. Anyway, and so this is my job. And they said, we understand. Who are you working for? And he thought for a second. He said, I'm working for my wife and kids. Okay. Are your wife and kids willing to accept part of your karma? And he says, sure, they love me. Little did he know. So he goes to them and said, you know, dear wifey. I'm sorry. This is, okay, I got to use Hindi. Priya. And she says, yes, Pati Dev. So, dear Priya, are you willing to accept part of the karma? She says, no. You work, me enjoy. So, and then he goes to his sons, and basically the same thing happens. And he gets some realization, and he goes back to the Saptarishi and says, no one loves me. And they say, we love you. And we're going to give you a path out of this. Okay, what's the path out of it? And they say you chant Ram, and he says, can't do. Too sinful to chant Ram. Actually, it's a fact. Sometimes people who are really, I mean, for example, I had one relative who I introduced her to, some of you may remember Krishna Priya. So I said, this is Krishna Priya, I'd like you to meet her. And she couldn't say Krishna, she could only say Priya. Later on, she changed. Anyway, it's a whole other story. Later on, she changed, and she said, she told me before she left her body she was a Hare Krishna devotee. But anyway, that's, people get purified. So he couldn't chant Krishna's name or Ram's name. So then he chants, or he's given the mantra, Mara, 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 and you all know he chanted Ram, 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 and became so purified just by chanting Ram that all this past karma, everything that he did in the past, was forgotten, forgiven, whatever, and he became the author of the Ramayana and hosted Lavan Kush and Sita Devi in his ashram just from chanting. Isn't that amazing? Just the chanting is so powerful. Namachintamini Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigra Punashada Nityamukto Pinatpam Namanamino. It's non-different than Krishna. Krishna's dancing on the tip of your tongue. It's the most pure thing. It's liberated. That's the chanting. It's simply amazing, isn't it? Simply amazing. What Srila Prabhupada has given us, what Lord Chaitanya, what our disciplic succession has given us, direct association with Krishna, and Krishna says in the Gita and the Bhagavatam, not Krishna, but the state of the Bhagavatam, Vidyantaksto Yabadrani Virunoti Saritsatam Srinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. That if one hears and chants Krishna's name and Krishna Kata, Krishna in your heart, he cleanses all these things. You don't have to cleanse. You have to make some endeavor. But you don't have to really go, oh my God, I'm so lusty. Lust, lust, lust. Krishna goes with his transcendental broom, vacuum cleaner, or whatever, pressure washer. I don't know what else. to say. And he cleanses the heart. It's amazing. And then you no longer have any desire to do those things. Amazing, isn't it? The things you liked to do before that were causing you pain, that were giving you a reaction, you no longer have that desire. It's gone away. Amazing by the chanting of Krishna's name. So, actually, one or two more stories before we take questions. Another story is the famous story of Magrari. For those who don't know that story, some of you may not know the story, Magrari was doing horrible things too. He was a hunter. But not only was he hunting, he was half killing animals just to see them suffer. His father taught him that. Can you imagine that? Just like to see animals suffer. So anyway, who comes along and he has all these animals trapped in different traps. I don't know if you've ever seen a bear trap. You know, these things that something like that. They just hold the animal, and the animal just suffers, can't get away, tears its leg, eventually dies. So Narada Muni comes along. Narada Muni sets the animals free. And Magrari, the hunter, says, why you do that? And he says, Narada Muni says, why you have killing animals? And he said, this is what I've been taught, this is what I enjoy. And then Narada Muni gives him a little virtual reality experience. He puts on some VR goggles. No, really. Anyway, he lets him see without goggles what's going to happen to him in the future, how there's the animals he killed were going to come back and kill him, teach him a lesson. Okay, fine. And he gets a wake-up moment. What should I do? Narada Muni says, chant Krishna's name and go to the bank of the river with your wife. Didn't have to take sannyas. See, no need. And worship Tulsi Devi. And he says to Narada Muni, what am I going to do to make a living? You know, eat. You know, I got to eat. You know, it's India, so you're not so much concerned with the shelter. You know, you can build a little thatch hut or something like that. It's not America where you can just like build a thatched hut in the middle of the summer, right? Doesn't work like that. So, and Narada Muni says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. In other words, Krishna will take care of it. So he goes to the bank of the rivers, chanting, very happy. Narada Muni comes back to visit. And when Narada Muni comes back to visit, what happens is that this Magrari, who's no longer Magrari, Madhava, I don't know what his new name is. So he starts jumping up and down in a very strange way as he's running to see his Guru Maharaj. And he's jumping up and down in a strange way because he's avoiding what? The ants. He's become so, let's say, non-violent. Such a great saint. He won't even step on an ant by accident. And so he bows down to his spiritual master, and Narada Muni says, do you get enough to eat, Prabhu? And he says, too much. People are sending too much. Interesting. Okay, one or two more stories. Of course, I said, so many stories come to mind. There's another story of Haridas Thakur and a prostitute. You know, prostitute occupation is not exactly the most pious occupation in the three worlds. But anyway, so go quickly, the story. So this man, Ramchandra Khan, sends the prostitute to try to lure Haridas Thakur away from his austerities because people become very envious when you see a spiritual person. You want to find fault in him. You want to go on the internet and say all sorts of nasty things, isn't it? Not that you do that, but so many people do that. Isn't it? Anyway, Aparadanet. That's the internet. Aparadanet. So anyway, so this guy, he doesn't like the Haridas Thakur, who's a great devotee, born in a Muslim family, but he's still a great devotee and attached to the holy names, pure devotee of the Lord. So he's chanting, he sends his prostitute there, and Haridas Thakur, in order to give her the holy names, makes believe he's going to enjoy with her by saying to her that I got to finish my rounds, just wait a little while. So this goes on 1 or 2, and then the third day she's been listening to him, hearing the holy names. She becomes purified, becomes a great saint, gets initiated by Haridas Thakur, and she gives up all of her belongings and serves the Vaishnavas and goes back to him, back to Godhead. So you see, Dinahina Yatu Chilo, Purinamu Darilo. Again, the chanting of the Lord's holy names. And finally, one final story. Okay, so many stories. There's a story in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes about someone who committed an offense against Lord Chaitanya. And he was purified by chanting the holy names. And what was that offense? Once upon a time, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taking prasad in the house of a great devotee, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And as he was taking prasadam, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes ate quite a bit. The reason he ate quite a bit is because people insisted that he should eat more and more and more, and they loved him so much they were cooking for him, even though he's a sannyasi. You see that sometimes sannyasis get so much food in front of them. I mean, one time I had 2,000 preparations they made for me. Can you imagine? 2,000. Oh my God, enjoyment. No, it was torture. Because you can't enjoy anything when everyone's looking at you and say, I hope he eats the preparation I cooked. Isn't it? That's probably the worst dinner I've ever had in my life. So anyway, so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they gave him a lot of food. He was eating more than normal to please his hosts. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's son-in-law, Amoga, came and was working, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was trying to keep him from seeing because he knew this guy was envious. So he started to criticize Lord Chaitanya, said he's eating as much as 10 men. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya ran after him with a stick to beat him, and he wasn't able to catch him because he was an old guy, and this was a young guy. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya thought, we got to arrange for him to be put to death, you know. But this is not proper, because he's a Brahmin. You can't kill Brahmins. He said, well, maybe I should commit suicide. That's not proper either. You know, suicide or killing people is not proper. So then he thought, what are we going to do? Well, maybe my daughter should renounce her husband. But then he heard that this guy had gotten cholera and gotten very sick, was at the point of death because of the reaction he had gotten. So he was lying on his deathbed, and then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came up to this person, Amoga, lying on his deathbed, and he said to Amoga, get up and chant Hare Krishna. So Amoga started to chant Hare Krishna, and then the reaction was gone. And he started to slap himself, a little prayaschitta there. He started to slap himself. He said, with this mouth I criticized Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You know, we should feel a little guilty about what we did. We don't have to slap ourselves. And so then he became a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So all these different stories I told, and the philosophical import is that whatever happened in the past, don't do it again. But whatever happened in the past, we chant Krishna's names. We don't consider the past of anybody who's chanting Krishna's names properly. We don't consider the past. We don't look at whatever reactions they've gotten in the past. We don't discriminate or criticize people because of some bodily features. You know, this is not proper. That's very offensive to do that. But we just look at people chanting, and we are so happy, even if one person, anybody, chants Hare Krishna once, according to Rupa Goswami, we offer respects in our mind to such a person. Isn't it? That's how powerful the chanting. You chant Hare Krishna once, and all of you have chanted Hare Krishna at least once here, isn't it? Hopefully. Hare Krishna. Okay. Hare Krishna. So I'm offering respects to everybody. And I chant a little Hare Krishna too. So on that note, on the glorification of the holy name, does anybody have any questions or comments about any points I made? Questions, comments? Yes. Yeah. Coming back. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Experience of what has happened to us, previous karmic reactions through the hellish procedures that we must have been gone through.
Yeah.
So then we would be more serious and not commit that.
That's why I say look at your horoscope. That's why that's called a horoscope.
Horoscope.
Your horoscope. Just look at your horoscope. And you know, if we think about it, that's why these punishments are sometimes described, so that we can actually understand, you know, what might. But that's not a real reason for becoming Krishna conscious. The real reason for becoming Krishna conscious is Kevalananda Kanda, you know, to really be happy and satisfied, to Shanti Cha, Ramanti Cha, according to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Machyata, Magyata, Pranas, Bodhyantas Cha, Parasparam, Katyantas Chamam Nityam, Tushanti Cha, Ramanti Cha. The real reason is to be happy and satisfied and have a loving relationship with Krishna, feel fulfilled in every single way. You know, I didn't become Krishna conscious, well, I'm not saying I am, but I didn't come to Krishna consciousness because I was running away from my karma. I came to Krishna consciousness because I wanted to love Krishna. And I understood that's my constitutional position as part and parcel of Krishna. So our impetus to be Krishna conscious should be based on something positive, not simply gotta get rid of all that bad karma. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
And if you want to find out about bad karma, look at your horoscope again.
Thank you, brother.
All right, any other questions or comments or problems or issues? Yes, Rishikesh, I think, back there. If you could speak loudly.
Just want to understand, those who chant Hare Krishna, and in spite of that also they go through some reactions, how do they understand, and how do you understand and keep...
All reactions, whether they're karmic or directly given by Krishna, which is in the case of someone who's chanting seriously, are meant to bring one to Krishna consciousness. Everything has a purpose. Not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we should see everything, one of my favorite verses in Bhagavad Gita, Yomam Pashati Sarvatra, Sarvam Chamai Pashati, Tashaham Na Pranashami, Sacham Na Pranashati. We should see Krishna in everything and everywhere. And if something happens to us, and certainly things have happened to me in my life in spite of chanting Hare Krishna for 55 years, seriously, I see Krishna behind them. And sometimes, to understand why Krishna does something, we have to look behind. It's called retrospect, or they say hindsight is 20/20. Then we understand why Krishna did that. But I can see in every instance in my life since I've been chanting the holy name, even when there have been trials, tribulations, problems, illnesses, I'm not immune. I've seen that Krishna's hand is there for a particular purpose. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Buddha. Thank you so much.
Krishna is everywhere. Krishna's in control of everything, and certainly with his devotees, those who are chanting Hare Krishna seriously, there'll be trials, tribulations. Prabhupada had to go through trials and tribulations, not to become a pure devotee. He's already a pure devotee, but as part of his Leela. Look at the Pandavas. Look at Queen Kunti. right? What did she have to go through? She was so brave, she asked for more of it. Tatra, Jagat Guru, Apunar Bhavadarshanam. She's asking more and more to happen again and again. So I don't ask for more and more. I ask for less and less. You know, when Prabhupada was asked, should we pray like Queen Kunti for more and more difficulties, Prabhupada said no. Things are difficult enough as it is. You know, I'm not taking any chances with Krishna here. Because when you chant, Krishna's hearing you. Krishna's hearing you all the time, especially when you're chanting. So you pray to Krishna. So any other quick questions? Yes. Well, yeah, back there.
Hare Krishna, Srila
Hare
Gurudev.
Krishna.
I was wondering are we supposed to know like why it's happening to us? Because I feel like sometimes things like Krishna definitely is always like giving reactions, but I try to reflect and figure out why, but sometimes I can't or I don't always.
Well, you could ask your guru.
Hare Krishna.
So, question. What? Well, I don't want to use the word punishment. Krishna does things for us to help us advance. Oh, yeah. Actually, Prabhupada says sometimes we don't actually have to suffer externally for a particular karmic reaction, but Krishna will let us know in a dream, yeah. Or Krishna will reduce it in a token reaction to let us know about what was previously coming to us, yeah. Okay, I think it's time to end. Thank you very much for sitting here for all this time in this very cool room. So, all glory to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki. Thank you so much, Maharaj. So such a wonderful class on atonement and the glories of the holy name. And I know there are a few of you here who are here for the first time. And if you like to take this process of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we have beads that you can take, and you can actually take to this practice of every day chanting the holy name, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We say you can start off by chanting 108 times, that is one round, which takes about around 10 minutes of chanting the Hare Krishna. So if anyone is interested, we are going to serve dinner prasadam, just right next to that we'll have a book table. So you could, Maharaj was also referring to Srimad Bhagavatam, so if you like you can take a full set of Srimad Bhagavatam and you can also get beads for chanting. Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So we would like to thank, few announcements before we go down for dinner. We would like to thank Nikunja Vasini Mataji,